Hello and welcome. I'm Jim Paterniti. In 2008, I developed stiffness in my neck, and on our evening walks together, my wife Mary noticed that I wasn't swinging my right arm. I went to my primary care doctor, who referred me to a neurologist, and I was eventually diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Not knowing much about Parkinson's at the time, my first reaction was, well, that's great. My career is over. I'm going to die, and it's not going to be pretty. Well, I'm still here. Parkinson's is not a death sentence, and you don't die from it, but it is an incurable neurodegenerative disease, and the symptoms worsen over time. It's more like a life sentence without parole. I did change my career, however. I became the proverbial jailhouse lawyer. And being a research pharmacologist, I studied the medical science behind Parkinson's. It was a challenging area, but it wasn't one that I could contribute much to, nor was it particularly useful in my daily life. Luckily, I met Lester Cohen, who also has Parkinson's and ran a Parkinson's support group. He and I met once a week over coffee, and we thought a lot about four things: how Parkinson's is treated, where the gaps are, what people with Parkinson's needed to do to fill those gaps, and what we can contribute that would help between now and the time a cure is found. As we read and talked, one fact became obvious: that besides taking our meds on time, making our doctor's appointments, many people with Parkinson's play little or no active role in their own care. We also discovered two reasons for this. Number one, people with Parkinson's just are not aware, they don't realize how important they are to their own care, and how much the choices they make influence their health outcomes. And number two, people with Parkinson's simply don't know what to do. They don't know how to get involved in their own care in a productive way. That's why we created Minds in Motion. At Minds in Motion, or MIMO, as we call it, we took the latest and best quality research on what works, what doesn't work. We talked to experts in the field and developed a practical program to empower people with Parkinson's to truly live well. MIMO is based on three cornerstones. We'll get to them in a minute. But first, we field tested MIMO here in San Diego and showed that it helped dozens of people with Parkinson's to live healthier lives and take control of their disease. Now, through our all-volunteer team and under the aegis of the Parkinson's Association, and most of all with a generous grant from the Tri-City Hospital Foundation, which we are thankful and can't thank them enough, we bring MIMO to this video channel. We sincerely believe that we can and must empower ourselves to take control and give ourselves the best choices to live joyful and productive lives. Well, some folks will say, why do I need to take control of Parkinson's to live well? It's what I can get my neurologist paid for. And even if I want to take my life back, what do I do? How can I do it? Let me make 2 points. First, number one and most important, as people with Parkinson's, we totally refuse to be defined by this disease. We are people. We define ourselves by the way we live, the examples that we set. And Parkinson's can only own us if we let it own us. And number two, our philosophy at MIMO is very simple. To live well, you must pull out all the stops. Use every tool in the tool shed. Forge new ones if you have to take control of Parkinson's. This video is your virtual tool shed. I need to make a very important point now. Doctors treat Parkinson's the way they do for very sound and rational reasons. In fact, we're going to look at the medical treatment of Parkinson's in a moment, and it should become very clear why we must partner with our neurologists and be totally involved and invested in our own care. Bottom line, well-informed life choices can synergize with our medical care and promote our health. Bad choices are going to make things worse. I'm saying that through our decisions and actions, we are the most important factor determining how we live with Parkinson's. Now I'm going to tell you a story to emphasize the importance and the urgency of taking control of this disease. In 1817, James Parkinson, in a now famous essay on the paralysis agitans, which is Latin for the shaking palsy, meticulously identified the hallmark motor signs of this disease. Those are slow movement, rigidity, stooped posture, and tremor. He even recognized that the disease was progressive, and that is to say that the movement symptoms that he described worsened over time. 200 years later, this description still colors the medical treatment of Parkinson's. People with Parkinson's see a movement disorder specialist to manage their Parkinson's in a movement disorder clinic. Carbidopa-levodopa, or Sinemet, which was developed in the late 1960s, is still the gold standard drug for Parkinson's motor symptoms. By the 1960s, however, a sea change was occurring in our understanding of how Parkinson's affects the brain. Medical researchers and clinical researchers recognized that the non-motor symptoms were not only present in Parkinson's, but they were as varied as the functions of the brain itself. And some symptoms, like loss of sense of smell, occur in 90% of people with Parkinson's decades before any of the classic motor signs are present. In my case, I lost my sense of smell in 1988, and I was diagnosed with Parkinson's 20 years later in 2008. Symptoms like depression, anxiety, pain, and the crushing fatigue that occurs in Parkinson's occur in other chronic diseases like diabetes, MS, and arthritis. But they're very common in Parkinson's. The conversation you hear again and again in the Parkinson's neurologist's office is, "Doc, I'm just so exhausted all the time. I need to lie down right now." Since there is no cure for Parkinson's and no way to slow its progression, the standard of care that doctors practice is to manage the symptoms and decrease suffering for as long as possible. This is almost by prescribing drugs, and lots of them. In my case, I took 6 to 8 Sinemet a day to control my tremor, and I was also on 11 other meds, some were taken twice a day. I also have a CPAP machine for my Parkinson's-related sleep apnea and REM sleep disorder. In my case, is more the rule than the exception. Parkinson's people take a ton of meds, and this is a real problem. It's a problem for doctors, but more importantly, it's a real problem for us. The old chestnut, called the iron triangle, is pictured on the left. It shows the trade-offs we make whenever we try to manage something. Good, cheap, and fast. Once you fix 2 sides of a triangle, the third side is determined. Good, cheap, and fast. You only get 2 out of 3. If it's good and cheap, it's not going to be fast. If it's good and fast, it's not going to be cheap. If it's fast and cheap, it's not going to be good. You get the idea. The right side of this diagram shows the iron triangle for medical drugs. It's the same idea. There's no free lunch. Trade-offs are a reality. If you push the dose far enough, boom, tolerability and eventually even safety are lost. If you can't tolerate a drug, let's say it makes you nauseous when you take it, you don't get any efficacy, but it is safe. Take this 2 steps further. In our bodies, drugs react with one another, especially the kinds of drugs that neurologists use to treat Parkinson's disease. Drug-drug interactions cause adverse effects. This is a fact of life. And since symptoms progress, that is to say they worsen over time, higher and higher doses of drugs are required, and more adverse reactions result. Eventually, a tipping point can be reached where the adverse effects outweigh the benefits. That is to say, the cure becomes worse than the symptoms. This is the burden your neurologist faces when she writes a prescription order. Less than perfect drugs, progressive chronic disease, many symptoms, and no cure. Current drugs for Parkinson's are not perfect. It's far from it. But no one here advocates weird herbal remedies or super supplements. These promise results that are too good to be true because there's no credible evidence that any of them are effective or safe. Doctors aren't perfect, drugs aren't perfect, but we'd be fools to vote them off the island. This is where we are. The drug-induced cloud has a silver lining. So far I've told you only one side of the Parkinson's management story, the medical side. There are non-medical tools to manage Parkinson's that are very, very powerful. Minds in Motion was created to capture and channel this non-medical energy. Through the MIMO program, we create synergy with medical care that can truly empower us to live well. The MIMO program has 3 components. Number 1, goal-directed exercise. By contrast with herbs and super supplements, where there's no evidence that they work, there is solid evidence from controlled human clinical trials that says that goal-directed habitual exercise improves the motor and the non-motor symptoms of Parkinson's. High-quality controlled intervention trials show that the right type of exercise not only improves gait and posture, but it does something you can't do with any drug. It improves balance. And improving gait, posture, and balance through exercise has been scientifically shown to decrease falls. And in case you missed it, falls are a leading cause of death and disability with Parkinson's. In this series of videos, we're going to sort through the best types of exercise for the specific symptoms of Parkinson's. We also share a tool that's a great list of questions that you can use to set realistic exercise goals and choose the best options for an exercise program. Now, the second component of MIMO is evidence-based education. Through evidence-based education, MIMO provides the most current and reliable information on what works and what doesn't work in managing Parkinson's. We also do it from the perspective of tackling problems that we see in our daily lives. As an example, when do I give up the car keys? And then once I've done that, what do I do? Besides exercise, what can I do so I don't fall? And if I fall, what's next? As a person with Parkinson's, when do I ask for help? How do I ask for help? We also talk frankly about the responsibilities and the burdens that our care partners face. What's reasonable to expect from our care partners? What is care partner burnout? And why must care partners care for themselves first? We constantly update these topics to reflect the latest findings in the interests of our viewers. The third component of the MIMO program is group support. That is, joining and actively participating in a local support group with your care partners. The chance to ask questions and share information about life with Parkinson's from people who actually walk in our shoes is priceless. Support groups create community. They provide the moment to stand together with others who have Parkinson's disease. And we say we are not alone on the journey. There are also places to have fun. Our MIMO support group held a beach volleyball game recently, and it was a hoot. Lester and I have 20-plus years experience in support groups. We use simple techniques which we gladly share with you to keep the group together, the conversations on a productive track, and most of all, to make it fun. To sum it up, doctors practice medicine according to a standard of care. It's a set of guidelines that incorporate scientific evidence, clinical expertise, and respect for the individual patient. People with Parkinson's need a non-medical standard of care to complement and even synergize with their medical care to truly take control of Parkinson's and live well. MIMO offers this non-medical standard. We constantly strive to be the best roadmap for the journey. And on behalf of the all-volunteer crew that's MIMO, we hope that you make the commitment to take control and live well with Parkinson's, and that we can provide the right tools. Our love and support go out to you. This is Jim Paterniti saying, thank you for watching and best of health. Goodbye.